FX3, S5ii, which one of these cameras do I personally think is better? Right, brand new month and we are into September. This is an aperture tube. I'm sure you've all seen one of these. And these come in at around 9 watts of output in terms of power. Now this is the new light from Zhiyun. This comes in at 100 watts for a tube light. And more importantly, I want to give away to one of you guys. So stay to the very end of the vlog and I will tell you how you can win one of these for nothing. There is an Apple event on just here. This lens is an anamorphic one from Sony. Comes in E mount, L mount, all the different mirrorless mounts. 6K open gate anamorphic. This being maybe the only camera on the market, maybe the GH7 does also, that allows you to have image stabilization while also capturing anamorphic and de-squeezing. I have finally bought my cage for my Brano after 6 months of owning it, and I've gone for the Kondo blue cage. First impressions of the cage are pretty good. You got this sort of base section, what comes into 2 parts across here, and allows you to remount the original Brano top handle. You also get this little section here that labels SDI out 1 and SDI out 2, and down here it removes the arm. Just back here is the original array rosette that allows the arm to mount on. But what it does is it moves the arm about 1 inch forward, just giving you some extra reach. I guess the last piece of the jigsaw I'm missing is a base plate, just for my fizz, for mounting motors on and stuff like that, and just rods underneath in case I ever need to go down that route. I am actually on the Osmo Pocket 3 today for BTS for the first time. From my testing, I'm enjoying it. It definitely feels like it's really good for its size and convenience, but it's kind of one of those where sometimes I like the footage and sometimes I don't. So this is the location, Magna. It's actually like a steel museum. At Sheffield, where I'm from, is like famous for the steel. It invented stainless steel, so. 2 camera setup for today's job. We are running the HoloLens headsets for communication, B cam Sony FX3, A cam Sony Brano, with the Tamron 70 to 300 lens for that reach. Main output is going to be social media here, but we still capture 60x9 just in case.
I believe she says a lot of things that she doesn't actually genuinely believe, so when she said she was going to stop me.
That's given me the extra fire and motivation to make sure I get out there on Saturday night and do a number on Rihanna.
Same project, but next day for a private weighing. This is FX3 with 24/7 for social media only.
1197, 1190.
And now we are going to a meeting about possible couple of days shooting next month. So hopefully this comes off because that'll be next month's vlog. What we've been doing this morning is like a private weigh-in, and then we're going to the public weigh-in that starts at 7. So yeah, and the sun's about to melt my face and melt exposure on this camera probably. Yep. So I blasted through that meeting and went on to that public weigh-in. It was the first time they've tried this, but there was weighing in one event in the middle of another boxing event. Overall though, it went pretty well, and adding the atmosphere from the crowd works good. The client requested gimbal, so we went FX3 side mounted vertically with a 24-70.
9 stone, 8 pounds, 7 ounces for Gary Harper. 9 stone, 8 pounds, 9 ounces for the defending world champion.
Fresh week. Excuse the focus. I've not got the autofocus lens on the Brano. I've got the Nisi Fina lenses, so I'm putting focus on this small rig, follow focus. Apologies if some of this is out of focus, but let's get into it. So I've had the FX3 and the S5ii for about 1 to 2 months now, and I've got some opinions on what the differences are. As I go through my thoughts on these 2 cameras, I'm going to roll some side-by-side comparison shots. I mounted the FX3 on top of the S5ii with the same lens, same settings, f-stops, white balance, ISO, and also even the same Nisi True Color and D-filter on Sigma Art 2470 Prime. So everything's the same. So let's start with what I think is better about this S5ii. Now, for me, and this can depend on the way you shoot and your lens options and what you shoot, but the biggest difference is simply the APS-C crop modes. With this thing having a larger megapixel count than the FX3, it allows you to crop into the 4K mode, pixel by pixel, just giving you a much more reach out of your lens. Now, you should always swap lenses, but in some situations, there is just not the time to do so. And it's so convenient to be able to punch into Super 35, APS-C, pixel by pixel. It just gets you the shot you need sometimes, especially when you're covering events or anything like that. So yeah, the first win for the S5ii is definitely the ability to punch in because of the larger megapixel count. Now, my opinion on photos is about as useful as a waterproof sponge. But for what it's worth, I have taken some photos. I take thumbnails and stuff for all my content. And there is just something... They're good. The photos out of the FX3, they're pretty good. But the ones out of this S5ii just have like a different texture. I don't know. I think the higher megapixel just makes them look more professional. I just much prefer what I've done. But again, take that with a pinch of salt. So third thing is S5ii much cheaper, and it's not as simply as just adding the extra money to be able to afford this, because then when it comes to comparing these two cameras, we'll get into it more in a sec to do with image quality, but lens trumps image quality in a way, especially when cameras are as close as these two. So if you can get this camera and spend the extra $1,000 you're going to save on a $1,000 better lens, I do believe that would be a bigger advantage than just buying this, but I'll touch a little bit more on that in a sec. Both cameras very good in low light, as you'd expect. FX3 slightly better, has that second native range at 12,800, where this second native range is at 4,000, and that is where this is better. Sounds strange, right? Simply because the usability of the 4,000 second native range on this camera, it's just convenient. When I always find myself at 4,000 on this camera, if I go up to 12,800, it's too bright. I've stopped down my lens. I'm then losing creative choice to do with like depth of field, etc. Where on this, the 4,000 is just much more usable. Even on the Brano I'm shooting on now, it's 3,200, and that's a Sony camera, and it is just much more usable. While it's amazing being able to go up to 12,000 and still keep the image super clean, it's not that usable unless you're in a super extremely dark situation. Next, EVF. Now, if you're someone who uses an EVF, it's obviously a massive advantage, and you could always save some money and get the A7S3, which is basically this camera but without an EVF. But is it because the A7S3 does not have a fan? While it's quite difficult to overheat an A7S3, it is possible. This camera is pretty much impossible. I've never said impossible, but this camera has the fan built in the EVF. So it's got a fan like an FX3 and an EVF like an A7S3. As you'd expect, IBIS is better on the Lumix, as Lumix's IBIS is just class leading. But it's not as much better as you'd think. Well, not from what I expected. The FX3 is also really good. It's best way to describe it is you have more options inside the Lumix. This basically has off, on, and then software, where this has like off, on, high, low inside the software, tripod mode for when you're not panning or tilting the camera. It's just overall better with much more options, but I would say it has got 10 to 20% better IBIS. And finally, the big one is open gate. This camera has 6K open gate. Granted, it loses some chroma subsampling, slightly worse quality, but it's still really cool to have. Now, I've said before in previous videos, I'm not the biggest fan of open gate. I do like it, there's nothing wrong with it. I'd prefer to have it than not have it, but I think we put a little too much emphasis on it. Like, a new camera comes out and you see a lot of people being like, it's got open gate, so I'm going to upgrade because of open gate. I'm not sure that makes sense. The whole vertical and landscape in one shot is compromised. It's like by turning your camera sideways in 16:9 or DCI, you will get a much higher resolution image than cropping in to open gate. So you might as well always just shoot the best possible image. Cameras are basically designed to shoot sideways nowadays with the mounting points and cages. For me, open gate is great. It's just not got the weight or the importance that a lot of people put on it in today's world. Right, let's move on to the good stuff about the FX3. First up is just body design. Something that I did not expect with the FX3, owning it. I've used it on hire a couple of times, but now that I've owned it for some time, it's just the usability. It's just simply the fact that there is no effort from Sony here to make this camera good at taking photos. Gives it the biggest advantage in usability for video. There is no buttons or dials dedicated to photos. Even the dials on the back here are labelled zebras, peaking, you know, all these things that just make it easy for shooting video. You've not got to remember any custom buttons. Just removing the options and settings for photos make this thing so much easier on a usability standpoint. Another one a lot of people talk about is 120 frames per second in 4K. This can only do it in 1080, I believe, and it is god awful pixel bin. This does it in 4K with like a 1.1 crop. Super impressive. It's pretty much what you'd expect. It is really, really good, high quality, super slow motion, and it's way better than the one in S5. So yeah, as you probably would have guessed here, that is a massive advantage for the FX3. Now, the FX3 does cost more money, so you'd expect it to have better build quality, and it does. The design language of the FX range is really pretty. It's nice looking. It's got mounting points everywhere. It's made out of really solid materials. I would say that this FX3 is in line with a H camera from Panasonic, so like a GH7 or a S1H. They're just little things like a lock on a card door, and I know a S1H and a GH7 have that, where the S5ii has no lock. So it's just little things. The build quality is a step above. The FX3 for me does have a more cinematic image right out of camera. I'm not saying you could not color grade or do some kind of treatment to the footage out of the S5ii to match it. You probably could. I'm not saying it's got a better image. It's just more contrast there. It's to do with the S-log curve versus the V-log curve. The way that the contrast is captured and applied back in, you just get a much contrast there, more like puncher image right out of the FX3. Something else it does is it leans heavily into like an orange tone, a greeny orange tone, which can be good or bad. I think for like narrative work, you'd want a neutral image, but a lot of social media content, it looks really great when it's kind of got this kind of orange warm glow to it. It makes skin tones look really nice and soft, and it makes stuff like brighter lights in the shot kind of bloom a little. It's almost a little bit like a mist filter, but not as exaggerated. Again, I do think you can match these cameras up. They're not a million miles away from each other, but right out of camera, just a little bit more cinematic for the FX3. Another advantage may be E-mount. Not sure. There is definitely, as it stands right now, a better range of lenses available for E-mount cameras. That's pretty much down to Sony's own G-Master lenses, I guess, as a lot of the like Sigma third-party stuff is also available for L-mount. Panasonic do have a little bit of catch-up to play to get their lens kind of depth up to speed, as Sony E-mount glass is probably the best in the business when it comes to electronical lenses. And there is a really good upgrade path. Like if you're on an FX3 and you have it for 3, 4, 5 years, and suddenly you start getting bigger, jobs more frequent, or whatever it is, you need another camera. Then you've got an FX6, FX9, Venice, Burano. As it stands, Panasonic Lumix are kind of limited to the S5ii. We'd all imagine that we have got new cameras coming from Panasonic very soon. We'd expect a new full frame H camera in the next 12 months, so that could change and even things up a little bit. The app, the monitor and control app and the creator app from Sony are the best in the industry. No one can come close. Their new monitor and control app, the way you can multicam and like joint record them to sync them up, is just incredible. So yeah, app wise, if you're someone who's going to be transferring a lot of files and apps, the Sony app ecosystem is really, really good. Better than Panasonic's. If finally, one of the biggest negatives about Panasonic is the fact that when you are choosing your codec inside the camera, in the higher resolutions, you cannot choose between H.265 and H.264. To keep this really simple, H.265 is really difficult for older computers. It's basically uneditable on machines that aren't relatively built in the last couple of years. Where on the FX3, there's a clear option before you get into resolution and frame rate on which codec you are going to capture. And this is a pretty big deal if you are on an older computer. To conclude this, overall, I still think the Panasonic S5ii is the best value camera on the market right now. Even more so when a used one on eBay and places like that are making less than 1500 USD. While the FX3 is making pretty much the same price used as it is new, as a lot of places don't even have stock. Unless you can afford to get above the price of the FX3 to get into the lens and ecosystem of those really good lenses, then I would definitely stick with the S5ii, as that leftover 2,000 or 3,000 USD budget would just get you so much of a better lens. Any differences in image quality would be gone, and you'll probably get a better image with that extra $2,000 lens out of the S5ii. Fresh project, and this one is a music video. Single camera shoot. A-cam is a Burano with the Nisa Afina lenses. We also have a Pro Mist in that matte box on the end, and we are shooting 4x3. We kind of want an organic feel and look to this, so we went handheld, hoping that the weight of the camera kind of give it that kind of big camera handheld feel. The results from what I've seen so far are really good. I've nothing to show yet, but hopefully when the edit and the grade is finished, I'll be able to put the footage in next month's vlog. The location was the National Peak District Park, and we was there for sunset. As taxing as it was definitely worth it. And it was back-to-back music videos. First step was the hardware store to pick up this piece of plastic, which will make a lot more sense in just a bit. Totally different vibe though, in a studio and a chance to get some lighting out. This is a brand new light I've been sent from GVM. Now GVM, I've had a lot of stick in the past, but this one seems like a totally new direction from them, so I'm going to give it a chance. It was my Zhiyun lantern on there as we was going to light from above. Just a little skirt around the edge to keep the background dark. Same setup as before, Pro Mist, Nisa Afina, wireless feed on there, shooting off to a producer and management. The GVM light actually lights up on the side, which I thought was pretty cool. We utilised that microphone that is built in all Zhiyun's light and had it flash along as a backlight here to music, which looked pretty good. And here we're just lighting motorbike. Quite a difficult scene to light, but we managed to get something decent in the end. And this right here is the reason we went to the hardware store to buy that bit of plastic. For such a cheap, affordable thing, the effect is actually pretty good. Something I've just noticed is this is my Lumix S Pro, so it is an S Pro. It's like a G Master or Canon L equivalent. Has this issue where this rubber has come off. I mean, it's not something that you really expect from such an expensive lens. So I've just picked up some glue from the hardware store and I'm going to glue that back down, but it's just really something that I don't expect from an S Pro lens. At least I don't expect from any lens, to be fair. But if you remember in the beginning of the video, I did mention how you can win one of those Zhiyun 100 watt tube lights. They come in a nice carry case just like this. So if you want to be in for a chance of winning this exact light for free, then in the top of the description below is a link to my Instagram. The first thing you need to do is just make sure you are following me. The second, there's a pinned post which is a photo of the C100 tube light. Comment anything you want below that, just something about the light or an emoji or anything at all. And I'm going to pick one, someone who is following me, and two, someone who comments on that at random and ship you this light for free. And if you want to watch all the rest of the vlogs before this one, if you are new, right here.